Okay guys, I've been promising to do a prep recap and cover the last couple weeks and whatnot for a while now, because over the whole prep, as you would know if you've been watching, I was covering my check-ins and that was sort of, I guess, a recap for each week as we went along. And then during the last couple weeks, things just got way too tough, too busy, and I wasn't really able to consistently make those. So to make up for that, we're going to do a little recap now. I haven't yet gotten the professionally done stage photos, so sorry about that. I'll upload them when I get them on Instagram, but I'll include some of the photos that my friends took and some of the photos we got, so you can at least get an idea for what the look was like on stage. What I've made up here is a recap document covering a bunch of things relating to the show and the prep in general. One thing I also don't have is the judges' feedback. Not exactly the simplest process to get. You have to put in a form and then they send it to you and so on. Most of the people that I asked at the shows didn't know how to get it and hadn't received it yet. Luckily, in my case, what I needed to work on is pretty obvious, so I can make do without it, but I would still like to go and find that somehow. The first section I've got here is my own thoughts on the result. So straight off the bat, I was not anywhere near lean enough. My conditioning was not what it should be, especially compared to the other competitors. I'm not sure exactly how many more kilos I should have lost, but I think I should have been under 92 kilos. That was the lowest weight that I got to, and it was my best look. And it would have removed the need for me to do any water cutting to get under the weight cap, because I did have to do some water cutting and weight cutting, and that kind of messed with the peak as well. The first show, I messed up my food on the day, and I ate and drank way too much, and it totally ruined my vacuum, which I've got a wide waist, so hitting a vacuum is a key part of my physique presentation. For the Melbourne show, I restricted food and fluids on the day to the bare minimum, and the vacuum was much better, and I didn't really flatten out, mostly because I just wasn't lean enough though. When I was backstage at both shows, there was a lot of guys who really looked like they'd pushed much harder than me. They were leaner, but they looked like they were suffering a lot more. And obviously the point of all of this isn't to make it as hard as possible on yourself, but it just made it obvious to me that I hadn't put in the hard yards and suffered as much as I should have to get where I wanted to be. The next section is what went well. So fatigue management, and this is what went well over the whole prep. In the mock prep, I did too much cardio too soon, so this time I focused on cutting food more and just adding in cardio later when that was a good idea. Whenever I had a problem come up, it was easier to solve because my fatigue wasn't already too high. The first 3/4 of the prep in general was actually quite easy and went really well. Everything felt fairly easy, the rate of loss was ahead of schedule. I even managed to make some improvements and bring up my legs, which is very hard to do in a prep. And then the last thing that I think went well was my social life and relationships. I was able to maintain them quite well, especially in the first 3/4 of the prep. In the final stretch, it was pretty tough, and I'll admit that the degree to which I tried to fit in family and friends also contributed to me slacking on my diet. I believe there was, and in the future there will be, a way for me to integrate both without just sacrificing the social life completely, and I kept it pretty well this time, but it was somewhat at the cost of the result. Yonu put up with me more than I could ask for. You know, we had some hard times and some arguments and issues, but we made it through. And in the end, I have to acknowledge that this is something I chose to do, and I'm asking her to put up with it. But at the same time, I think it's reasonable to expect your partner to make some compromises to support you. Overall, I'm very thankful to have her as per usual, and for everything she does for me. You know, I think what's the point in bringing home a trophy to an empty house? I didn't bring home a trophy at all, but the point still stands. So what went badly? Now I split the section of things that went badly into things that were outside my control and things that were inside my control, because I do think it's important to consider both. As for things outside of my control, I got sick like 2 or 3 times over the course of this prep, and the last one really messed me up. It stalled my progress, so I couldn't get any better for at least a week, and also it made me put on a ton of water weight that for some reason I just never recovered from. Like beforehand, that was when I was 92 kilos. Over the course of a day or so, I went up to 100 kilos, if I remember correctly. So I gained 8 kilos of mostly water weight in about a day, and I just never quite recovered from that. Reviewing my check-ins, it was the weeks before getting sick that I looked the best, and it was my lowest weight. And I hate to obsess over something I can't control, but that one really gets to me. There was also a shortage of PEDs, certain ones that I was planning to use. Seems like just globally, there was a shortage of them. I had a small supply, but I did run out, and I was kind of forced to jerry-rig my cycle a little near the end. I managed it well, and it didn't make a particularly big difference, but it's not ideal. This is definitely the sort of thing you want to have planned and organized ahead of time. As for what went badly, but it was in my control, I was definitely a little too lax on the high days later in prep. The 6-to-1 low to high day ratio that we had was working perfectly, and I was ahead of schedule. But near the end, the psychological fatigue plus family events plus getting sick all combined to make me justify just going a bit too overboard on those high days. And this has been on my mind a lot because not being lean enough was clearly my biggest issue. It was immediately obvious to me when I saw the other competitors, and even when I compared my peak week and the show day to my best check-ins, I was just fatter. The next thing that was within my control was my degree of measurement. The particular ones I'm thinking of were the salt and fluid intake, at least during or just before peak week. The skin folds, measuring those might have been good, but to be honest, I don't think I really got lean enough for that to matter. They might have given me a better idea of what was water weight fluctuations and what was fat left to lose. That could be good. But the main thing was the salt and the fluid, what I'm going to change on the next prep. Now, this is far in the future, so this could change, but what I'm thinking is that I need to take a longer time and have more and longer diet breaks as I get closer to stage lean. So my plan is actually to do a prep, but not pick a show date, because I don't want to step on stage until I'm as lean as I should be. So I'm going to get like freakishly stage lean and then pick a show, and then I'm going to figure out how to hold that condition into the show. I think also I should probably switch classes from classic physique into bodybuilding. My natural body shape, I think, just fits bodybuilding better. And while bodybuilding has weight classes, if you're too heavy, the worst case scenario is you just get bumped up a class. In classic, if you're too heavy, it's last minute unplanned weight cutting, or you go home. And then lastly, what are we doing in the off season, which is right now? I'm going to be focused on building my legs. Aside from not being lean enough, legs was the weak point. During prep, I brought them up, and so when I saw myself on stage, I was actually surprised how relatively even it looked. Like it was much better than in the past, but they still need to improve. I'm going to be hitting upper body just once a week. That might seem odd, but you got to do what you got to do to improve. My upper body, I think, can hold just fine and maybe even grow, even training it just once a week. Like if you think about it, there's a lot of guys who do one chest day, one back day, one arm day. What if you just squeezed all that together? And then we can put all of our focus and energy and recovery into growing the legs. I'm also going to make sure I stay lean, so we're already working on that one. Obviously, some fat gain is to be expected over the off season, but I've picked out a standard of conditioning based on my last off season. We'll include a photo of that, and I will not be allowing myself to get fatter than that. Ideally, we'll be even leaner. We may need to use some mini cuts interspersed throughout this long off season time. It's probably going to be at least a year. But the idea is next prep we start even leaner so we can finish much leaner. That is a prep recap. I hope you guys got some useful information out of that. I know I quickly mentioned a section about PEDs, which I don't think I've actually talked about openly here before. I'll be making a video on that soon. So if you're interested in that, stick around.